What's going on, Rams fans? Welcome back to Rams Showcase. Tonight, the Rams get some young pieces back on the football field. Plus, the first quarter of the season is complete. We'll talk about how your favorite players are performing. And later, the LA Rams take on the Washington football team. We have the full preview next on Rams Showcase.
Welcome to Rams Showcase on Sports War Radio.
What's going on, Rams fans? Welcome back to Rams Showcase right here on Sports War Radio. I am your host, Joe Brandon, but you can and should call me Sheriff JOEBAGS. Laying down the law for you guys tonight. Pretty cool show for you guys. We got a little bit of news to get into. Nothing too crazy. The news is a little bit light this week. We're also breaking down the first quarter of the season. This is the final time that we can break down the first quarter of the season. Because next year, we know now that we're going to see 17 games next year. So, very difficult to pick out a quarter of that. I would have to break it down in the middle of a game. So, we'll get into like the first 29% of the season next year or something. But that sounds like future Joe's problem. We don't need to worry about that right now. And then, of course, we're talking this game preview. The Rams taking on football team. And should be a good one. Actually, there's some interesting tidbits that we will get into when the time comes to preview that. But let's get into this news, shall we? So TERRELL Lewis, linebacker, is set to return, is set to be activated this week. To the active roster, at least. That does not mean that he'll be activated on game day. It's probable, not guaranteed, is what I'll say. So don't expect him to take too many reps if he is active on game day, not just active roster, as he'll likely be kind of just eased into the fold and to the defense and stuff. But, it's a good bit of information that TERRELL Lewis is coming back to the field because the Rams linebacker group is, pretty clearly its weakest unit. I don't think it's super weak, but it is the weakest unit on the field, I think. And so I think it will get better as the season goes on, though. We've talked about that in past episodes, though, that with Joe Barry, with Brandon Staley, and a young group of linebackers, I think that over time and over the course of the season, the whole entire group will get better together. And TERRELL Lewis is a talented pass rusher. So to get him back in, I think is huge for the Rams and increasing that pass rush. Right now the pass rush isn't necessarily weak. Leonard Floyd's doing a pretty good job. Ebukam is really good. Of course, Aaron Donald, we don't we don't need to mention his name, but we do all the time because, he's great. So, but I really do think that as the season goes on, this entire unit will keep getting better, especially, like I said, under Joe Barry. Very talented linebacker coach, and he gets it right. So I think TERRELL Lewis coming back is a huge addition for the Rams. It also looks like the Rams will get Cam Akers back, but we will, of course, do a full injury report when that time comes for the game preview a little bit later on. Also, this is the final game for the Rams against the NFC East, or the NFC Least, as many people are calling it, as the Philadelphia Eagles lead that division with just one win. They got their first win last week and jumped to first place. So I'm a little bit jealous that we can't, be in that division, but hey, it's also cool to be in a good division where it's tough to win, because if whoever comes out on top of the NFC West, they're a good team, and we can tell that just because they're all pretty decent teams. I think Arizona's a little bit of a fraud. And I think after week 2, everybody was like, whoa, Arizona's legit. And I was kind of just like, okay, pump the brakes a little bit. Now they've dropped a couple straight. So I think that everybody's kind of more with me and my original thoughts on that. It's the defense. I can't get behind that defense right now. Kyler Murray's still very young. Rough offensive line, not the best in the league. So as far as that goes. But 5 games, 4 of those against NFC East opponents, and the Rams could sweep that division this year. McVay has historically done a pretty good job at sweeping divisions, but McVay playing against his old team, not only is he playing against his old team, it's the first time back in Washington, because the Rams and former team name Redskins, they did play in LA a couple years back. That was 2017, McVay's first year as the Rams head coach, but that was in LA. So this is his first time back in Washington. So we'll, of course, get into the whole game preview, though. But next up, we got, this is a pre-recorded segment, so I'm going to look a little different. But here we go. We got the first quarter breakdown for you guys. What's up? So what we're doing here is we're actually going to do the quarter breakdown. I'm going to let you guys know where these players are statistically right at the moment. What I'm not telling you, we will give projections on the full season. This is actually the last season that we can give legitimate quarter breakdowns. But just to let you guys know, when you see the final numbers, that's not me saying that I think that those will be this player's final numbers. It's just what they are currently exactly on pace for. So let's hop right into it. First up is quarterback Jared Goff. He right now has thrown for 1,063 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That puts him on pace for 4,252 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 8 picks. If you guys are asking me, this to me is a Jared Goff stat line. It is not overly flashy. It is not, the 5,000 with 40 plus touchdowns. This to me makes sense. This stat line makes sense. I think it's a little bit low for Jared Goff. I think that he absolutely can throw for more than 4,000 or 4,200 yards and 24 touchdowns. I think he's more in the 47, 48,100 range and closer to about 30 touchdowns myself. That's where I would put him at. But to me, this stat line makes sense for a guy like Jared Goff. Next up, we're going to go to the running back position. And first, we're going to start with TERRELL Henderson. Right now, he's got 223 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. That puts him on pace for 894 and 8 touchdowns. This, of course, those are not mind-blowing numbers, but I think for a guy like TERRELL Henderson, I think this fits, and I think this is actually, for a guy like this, I think this is actually a really strong season for a guy like TERRELL Henderson. So I don't think that if he ended with, almost 900 yards and 8 touchdowns, anybody would be complaining about that, especially since the Rams are really doing a big running back by committee situation this year. The other running back that the Rams run pretty heavy is Malcolm Brown. He, of course, has been a Ram for quite some time. 182 yards on the season so far and 2 touchdowns. That puts him on pace for 728 and 8 touchdowns. I don't think this would really surprise anybody either. I think these are pretty Malcolm Browny numbers, if I say so myself. I would say that if he was more of the feature back, I would put him closer to that 900 range, more in the range of what TERRELL Henderson is on pace for. But I think 728 and 8 touchdowns, I think Malcolm Brown, if he can end the season with that, and also TERRELL Henderson ending with almost 900 and the same amount of touchdowns, I think that would look really good on us as far as the ground game goes. So Malcolm Brown, he's putting in some work. The committee is definitely taking some carries away from not only Malcolm Brown, but also TERRELL Henderson, and hopefully we get Cam Akers back soon where he can start contributing. Let's go to the wide receivers. The Rams' leading wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, 23 catches on the season, 297 yards and 2 touchdowns. That puts him on pace for 92 catches, 1,188 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think that about an almost 100 catch season and an almost 1,200 yard season with 8 touchdowns, that's Cooper Kupp. And I think that for me, I would be very okay with these numbers. And, it's not really my decision. And it's not like if he doesn't hit these numbers that it's like, okay, Cooper Kupp's got to go. But I think that this makes sense for Cooper Kupp. He's the Rams' leading receiver, and that makes sense. The Rams did pay him, of course, this season. We know about that. But Cooper Kupp, he's still showing that he's a big part of this offense. And, he pretty much, aside from the Darius Williams interception there, Cooper Kupp is really the one that ended the game and kind of sealed that victory over the New York Giants in Week 4. Robert Woods is the other Rams wide receiver who gets a decent amount of production, 19 catches on the year, 228 yards and 1 touchdown. Of course, I think Robert Woods, I want to say it was only 1 or 2 touchdowns last year. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that, but this puts him on pace for 76 receptions, 912 yards, 4 touchdowns. I think that's low for Robert Woods. And so far this season, it's not like he's really been, lighting it up necessarily, but he's also contributing on the ground. I didn't include those numbers here just because he's a wide receiver. I'm doing wide receiver numbers. Leave me alone. So I think these numbers are a little bit low. I would like to see those higher by the end of the season, but we'll of course do a halfway mark as well. And I mentioned earlier that we're not going to be able to do quarter breakdowns anymore next year. So this is really my final first quarter breakdown for the Rams, because if I was able to break it up into a nice even quarter next year, I would have to do this segment in the middle of a game, and I'm not going to do that, guys. I'm pretty focused when the game's on, so I'm not going to do that for you guys. I do apologize, but so for this one though, I think that this is a little bit low. I would like to see those numbers pumped up a little bit, but hey. I think Bobby Trees, I think if anybody is going to increase their numbers as the season goes on, it's a guy like that for surezies. All right. Tight end position, this is kind of also a receiver position, especially when you're talking about this guy, Tyler Higbee. 13 catches on the year. That's not that many right now through the first quarter. 155 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those all came in one game. That was week 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles. He is on pace for 52 catches, 620 yards, and 12 touchdowns. For a tight end, these are fine numbers. Especially for, Higbee, he's broken out over the last 8 games, really. So we still are kind of, I feel like we're learning Higbee, and Higbee's really learning how to be a top target in the receiving game, because we haven't necessarily seen that except for over the last 8 games or so. Of course, I'm going back to last season where he kind of broke out in those final 4. And then this year, he's played well. 13 catches, that's really not that many over 4 games. That's what, an average of like 3.25 is what I'm putting it at. So I think that's actually right. I'm impressed with myself. I'll be honest with you guys. That's amazing. I just impressed my own brain right there. But 155 yards, I don't think that's anything to really sneeze at. But I think that these numbers will bump up. I don't think that Tyler Higbee's going to end with just 620 receiving yards. I think that will be higher. I would put him a little bit closer to the 750 range myself. As far as 12 touchdowns, I think that's right in line. To be honest, I think that's right in the pocket of where he'll end the season. And feel free to reference this video at the end of the season because, I have no issues admitting I was wrong. And also, I'm usually not. So so it's okay. You can bring it up again. Let's go to the defensive side of the football. We'll start with Aaron Donald. As far as defenders go, 13 tackles on the year, 3.5 sacks, and 4.5 tackles for loss. AD is on pace for 52 tackles, 14 sacks, and 18 tackles for loss. Historically speaking, Aaron Donald has started the season a little bit slow. This season, in the first quarter, he's actually playing really well. I'll have to find numbers. This is pre-recorded. I'm doing this the day before I'm actually doing the full show. So once I come out of this, I'll try to remember to go back and look at what he was doing in the first quarter of previous seasons and compare it to you guys. But I think Aaron Donald so far, maybe I'll even put up a little graphic if I can find that and just slap it on in there. So, but Aaron Donald, obviously we know this is one of the better football players in the universe. But he's playing really well. Of course, there was a moment in that Bills game, week 3. It was the Rams' only loss so far to this point. He completely took that game over on the defensive side of the football. I know that they were able to work it down and score that last touchdown, but it was about halfway through the third quarter till the end of the game. Aaron Donald was like, all right, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of you guys moving the football. It's over, and he just kind of took it over, and that was amazing to see, and hopefully that can kind of continue with a guy like him and a guy who's built like him and the mentality that this guy has. That is really what's not talked about enough when it comes to Aaron Donald, in my opinion. Yeah, he's an absolute athletic freak, but that's also and I think entirely because of his mental state. He is so focused. He is ultra focused. He is so driven. That's why people like this guy. When we like to think of our favorite football players and we like to think about Rams players, I know for myself, I want these guys to be uber focused, like obnoxiously focused. There was a time, I can't even remember what game it was, what season it was, pretty recently, I believe it was last year actually, that the Rams were losing a game and they showed the sideline and Todd Gurley was laughing on the sideline. That really bothered me, and it bothered a bunch of fans. I saw comments. I was getting comments myself, and I saw them, in different Rams Facebook groups and on Twitter and stuff. It was like, why is he laughing? We're losing. And that will never happen with a guy like Aaron Donald. The guy is uber focused, ultra focused. He's always zoned in on the game. He is motivated like I've never seen anybody before. And, Aaron Donald, obviously, we're all very happy that he's an LA Ram. No one else is, though. And poor Kyle Allen having to go against Aaron Donald for his first start of the season. Linebacker Micah Kiser. I heard a lot of comments about this. I've been a Kiser guy. I've liked Kiser. It was unfortunate last year he was injured. He comes in this year. He's got 32 tackles right now, on pace for 128. I did leave these other stats in there. I didn't necessarily need to. I'm not trying to call him out here and say, like, hey, he's got 0 sacks, 0 picks, anything like that. But also, I think we need to still... We've only been in one quarter of the season so far. I still think we need to be mildly lenient with Micah Kiser because missing last year, no offseason at all, really. If you want to really dig deep into it, this really wasn't an offseason. It was kind of a half offseason. But you're not hitting. You're not even seeing your teammates. You're sitting in front of a computer to do meetings and stuff. That's just not the same thing. So Micah Kaiser, I'm going to give him some time. 128 tackles is what he's on pace for. That is not bad at all. That is not bad. But I think that number could get bumped up. This guy's all over the field. He is definitely a competitor. He flies to the ball. He's not really slow, and that's kind of nice to see too. He's great against the run, which is something that the Rams have struggled with over the past few years. So I like Micah Kaiser. I think that he's going to be kind of developing as the season goes on. More time playing for Joe Barry, more time playing under Staley. New Rams defensive coordinator. Of course, he was the outside linebacker coach for the Denver Broncos last year. He also coached Leonard Floyd out in Chicago as a linebacker coach as well. So Micah Kaiser, though, playing under Staley, playing under Barry, getting those reps, getting more time in the defense. I think he's only going to get better as the season goes on. So I'm excited to see what Micah Kaiser does the rest of this year. Next up, and the last one that we'll go over, is going to be cornerback Jalen Ramsey. Of course, the big payday, $110 million big ones. And I'll be honest, I was waiting for a suspension this week. If I'm recording this and I didn't see it yet, or it happens after I record this, then that's really unfortunate, man. But I've been almost expecting it with this news of the Jalen Ramsey fight with Golden Tate, and I wasn't thrilled about it. I understand it. I understand the personal issues that have arisen between the two, but I hate that stuff. Especially if he was going to get suspended. If he gets fined, that's not I don't care about that at all. That's his money. I have nothing to do with that. But if he gets suspended, then it's impacting the team. That's when I have a problem with it. And it's not necessarily my problem to have. It's just a frustrating thing when, one of the better players, one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL, if he were to get suspended, to not be out on the field. That's where we need him. That's why we pay him. You know what I mean? So it would be a frustrating thing to not see him out there. But we've made it. I'm recording this on Thursday. We've made it this far. So from that standpoint, I think we're okay. I think we would have heard something probably Monday or Tuesday if he was going to get suspended. We got that going for us. But hey, maybe just chill out a little bit. But I got to say, though, that hit on Golden Tate, oh, man, I got fired up on that one. That was amazing. It was so much fun to watch. And, I don't hate any players anymore. I kind of got over that. I don't hate any teams anymore. I'm kind of over that stage as well. But Golden Tate's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe it was the peace sign years ago. I don't know exactly. It's probably that. If we're being honest with each other. And I like to think that this is a place that I can be honest with you guys about my opinions and stuff. But Jalen Ramsey, hopefully everything's good with that. But that hit made me feel real good. So Jalen Ramsey has 13 tackles on the season, 2 passes defended, 0 interceptions so far. So of course he'd be on pace for 0 in that department, but we'll see what happens. I don't think you can go a full season with Jalen Ramsey not getting any picks. Of course, he just had the one last year. He's on pace for 52 tackles, 8 passes defended, and 6 tackles for loss. I searched the stat sheets everywhere I could, all over the place, and from what I can tell, they did not credit Jalen Ramsey on that sack, so he still is yet to record a sack in his career, according to what I can see. And what I looked up on NFL.com, I looked on the Rams.com, I looked on the score, I looked on ESPN, the app. Everything I'm seeing, no sacks for Jalen Ramsey, so that's unfortunate for him. There's even like the Rams, I think it was the official Rams, posted a video breaking down Jalen Ramsey's first career sack, and it didn't even count. So that's unfortunate for Jalen Ramsey, but hey, you know what? He's one of the better cornerbacks in the league, and I'm glad he's on our squad. But that does it for your first quarter breakdown. Back to the show. Thanks, Past Joe. I appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get into this game preview. We got the LA Rams at the Washington football team. Brandon Gaudin and Daryl Johnston will be on the call. I'll pop up the distribution map for you YouTubers out there. Brandon Gaudin, if you guys don't know, pretty much the voice of Madden. I don't play Madden anymore. I ran out of time, and B, it's a trash video game, so I don't play it anymore, but Brandon Gaudin is on that. Many people know him from that. Daryl Johnston, of course, been around in the football world for quite some time, but the Rams and football team will be playing in the blue areas, not a large area as far as TV coverage goes this week. We get the Battle of Pennsylvania. That's the big one that you see on the screen. That's the large area there, the Eagles and Steelers. The Rams are favored in this game by 7 points. The over-under at 46. That over-under feels a little bit low to me, but you know what? Maybe it's not. The Rams being favored by 7, that kind of checks out. I think that that's about in line for this game, especially just because of the game last week. I think that the Rams are 7 points better, more than 7 points better than football team, but as far as the game last week, that one being at home against the Giants, who are not a very good football team, as opposed to football team, who's also not a very good football team, I think it's about in line. It was an 8-point win for the Rams over the Giants last week. So not the best performance by the Rams, but McVay was pretty clear last week that he was having trouble with the game plan. I think it was just a matchup thing. And this kind of happens. We see games like this, it seems like every year, where the offense just doesn't feel like itself. And I don't know if that was just maybe going in a little cocky, thinking that the Giants weren't very good, and so that they were going to kind of roll. But it's all good. But the weather in this game, this is actually a factor this week. I talk about it every week, and usually I feel like I'm like, oh, it's going to be 72 and sunny. It's going to be gorgeous out there. Enjoy the day. This time, though, 68 degrees, so a little bit lower. But the precipitation chances at kickoff are 72%, 74% at the end of the game. It's going to be about 68 throughout. But it's very possible that we get some rain in this one. Light winds throughout. That's not a concern. But precipitation very well could be a concern in this game. And you're talking about a team from LA that not only has played in LA for a billion years now, obviously moved back recently, but the history there. And then when they were not in LA, when they were in St. Louis, played in a dome. So weather games always have worried me about this Rams team just because of their history. Of course, we can't go all the way back to Cleveland. None of those players are still playing. I don't know if that needed to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway, that nobody that was on the Cleveland Rams is still playing. The weather in this one, it is a little bit of a concern, but we'll see what happens. I've been kind of keeping an eye on that, but what am I going to do? I'm in Colorado, so I don't know what I'm going to be able to help with. It's not like I can shield the football or anything from getting wet, so that'll be something to watch out for Jared Goff. He already has fumble concerns. We've seen that in his entire career, so with a wet football, that could potentially be a problem, especially when Chase Young is on the other side, so keep an eye on that. Some notes in this game: Kyle Allen getting his first start of the season. Dwayne Haskins dropped to third string. Some reports say that Haskins was kind of gloating about some of his own stats after a loss, and that caused some issues in the locker room. And that would kind of make sense as far as going from a starter to third string. Now you're just clipboarding it out there. And I think with a guy like Ron Rivera as your coach, if he was in the locker room bragging about his own stats after a loss, that's a very Ron Rivera move to be like, all right, never mind then, man. You get down, sit down. Don't even wear pads this week. You're not going to need them, And Kyle Allen, of course, he played with Rivera out in Carolina, so that makes it a little bit difficult to game plan when you have some tape on the team, but now they switch quarterbacks. It's always a difficult thing to kind of understand his tendencies, all that stuff. So we'll kind of see how that unfolds. But I think that Staley is up to the task of game planning against Kyle Allen. We do have tape of Allen under Ron Rivera last year in Carolina, so that helps. No suspension for Jalen Ramsey. I'm a little bit surprised at this. I'll be completely real with you guys. I'm a little bit surprised that Jalen Ramsey didn't get... we didn't hear anything. We didn't get fines. We didn't see suspensions. I know I talked about this in the pre-recorded thing, but I'm a little surprised that Jalen Ramsey didn't get anything for it. But he's also not making any comments about the fight last week, which I absolutely agree with. I know Golden Tate came out and said a couple of things, but I actually didn't even look at the comments because it was like, okay, it's time to move on from this. That's kind of how I felt about it. So let's take a look at the matchup of this game. Let's see. So the Rams offense, we'll start with on that side of the football. The Rams offense ranks 7th in the league overall. Washington defense, though, also 7th in the league. Football team is really strong against the pass, but they aren't exactly facing top-notch passing teams. I think that the Rams might be the best passing team that football team will have seen this year. So Philadelphia Eagles, they're playing with scout team guys right now. Arizona Cardinals, they do have some wide receivers, obviously DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, And Kyler Murray, he's more of a runner, but he's been doing a fine job passing. But that was also week 2 when the Arizona Cardinals were playing pretty well. Cleveland, I mean, they have the weapons, but is Baker Mayfield really that notable of a passer? I'm not sure. And the Baltimore Ravens, I'm not trying to knock on the Ravens here, but they're more of a running team. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. They're more of a running team. So that's kind of, it's going to be a good matchup as far as that goes, but I think that really, I feel like these numbers might be a little bit skewed. And I don't want to just sit here and bash football team or anything like that, but they're still searching for their identity. And I mean, they don't have a name, so obviously they're searching for an identity. That just kind of, that kind of happens. But the Rams they're running the football pretty well still. It was just a 58-yard performance against the Giants. Don't look too deep into that game against the Giants, by the way. Like I said earlier, McVay, he was a little open that was a difficult defense to game plan against, and I think that was for matchup purposes. And it really did look like most of the players were kind of just going through some motion. So I don't think that game defines this team at all. I think that a better game to define the team would be that game against the Eagles. It looked like the team really wanted to win that one. I think that's more indicative of how this LA Rams, the 2020 LA Rams is that week 2 game against the Eagles, not the week 4 game against the Giants. That's just me. Obviously, you're only as good as your last game, and the Rams' last game was the Giants game, so they're obviously not looking super amazing right now. But what I can say is usually after that happens, I don't know what those meetings look like in that locker room and in those meeting rooms, but after the Rams have a game like that, they usually tend to come out really strong the next week, so I'm looking for that to happen. Let's take a look at the other side. Washington's offense will be a little bit difficult to game plan against as they are starting Kyle Allen this week, but at least we have the ability to go back and look at game tape last year for Allen under Rivera, like I had mentioned a little bit earlier. The LA Rams defense is currently tied for 12th in total yards, but has been very strong against the pass. The run defense has taken a hit, but I don't think that this is necessarily that big of a thing to really look into because the Rams are keeping a lot of DBs on the field, and we're seeing a lot of just 3 linebacker sets, which really gives the Rams like a 6-man box. We're seeing 6-7-man boxes pretty regular. It's a lot of teams when you're going against a running team, you're going to load that up, maybe put 8 guys in there, but we're seeing 6, and we're seeing a lot of DBs, and I think that that's kind of on purpose. With the Rams offense, we can put up points, and if you're forcing the other team to try to throw the football on you, typically you're going to come out stronger and you're going to be able to score more points than they can put up. And no team's going to try to come back on you on the ground. So I think for those purposes, it kind of makes sense. Washington has its playmakers on offense, but is still struggling to move the football. They only convert about 1/3 exactly of their third down conversions and are only ahead of the Jets and Giants on points scored per game. They're also ahead of only the Jets and Giants on the ground attack. So this absolutely plays into the Rams' favor. I had mentioned that last week that with the Giants having some struggles on the ground, that helped the Rams. That blatantly helped the Rams. It didn't give up a touchdown, and I think that that's going to be a pretty similar thing. I think that this game is almost going to look like it did last week, but I think that the Rams' offense is really going to be just a little bit more structured, a little bit more powerful this week than it was last week. And I think that is because there was a little bit of that lapse in effort level, I will say, against the Giants in week 4, at least from my eyeball test. You guys can feel free to disagree with that, but you'd be wrong. So let's see here. Also, the Rams defense is tied with the Bucks on points per game. So it did say that we're tied there. It's with the Bucks there. So let's take a look at the history of this matchup. The Washington leads the all-time series 26-13-1. That's a big difference. This is the 41st meeting between the two. Washington has won the last 2 meetings between these teams. The last Rams win was December 7th of 2014. The most recent game between these two was September 17th of 2017. Washington did take that one 20-27. That was, of course, the only game that McVay has played against his former employer, which was Washington. And the first game between these two came on November 21st, 1937. I don't know why I had to say it like that. Like I had to say it old-timey. 1937. But 16-7 for Washington in that one. The only tie between these two came on October 22nd of 1967. That was a 28-28 tie. That would put both my parents at 3 months old is when when the tie happened. And then it was on December 16th, 1945 that the Cleveland Rams defeated Washington 15-14 in the NFL championship game. This was one of 4 playoff games between these two teams. Each team has won 2. On the road for the Rams, they are 6-12 all time against Washington, and looking to push that up to 7-12 all time against Washington. Let's take a look at some fan quesos for you. Slap up the graphic and make sure you guys, the fan quesos are always sponsored by Shaw's Customs. And I got to tell you guys, Shaw's Customs is where it's at. Sick vinyls. All right. I still have not placed my Ram Showcase vinyl because I'm weird. I feel like the second I put it on something, I'm going to be like, oh, you know what? That would have been better there, And so I'm like, I'm always nervous to place them, but we are going to get some giveaways going. I know I tease that like every time, and I promise that I'm doing my best here. I thought I was going to free up more time after school, but turns out I got busy in other ways. So we're still working with that, but rest assured, we are still working on that. So let's get into some fan quesos sponsored by Shaw's Customs. Make sure you guys check them out at etsy.com/shop/Shaw's Customs. A lot of shoes in there. And remember, guys, let them know that Sheriff Joe Bags sent you. You won't get a deal, but he'll get a kick out of it. And remember, if it wasn't made by Josh, it was made by somebody else. Let's get into these fan quesos. This first one here comes from John. A very strong question, John. I actually really appreciate this one. What are Les Snead's 2 best personnel decisions, and what are his 2 worst personnel decisions? Strong question. I actually took some time. I wrote out an answer for you. So to kind of like break it down a little bit more. So 2 best decisions. Let's start with those. Let's start with positives, all right? So I think deciding to cut the cord on Gurley and Cooks, even though many experts thought it was too soon, I absolutely agree with that. I know that's a recent one, and some of these will be pretty recent, but I think that was actually a really strong call to just get out of those contracts. Cooks with his injury history, Gurley with his knee injury, and his poor locker room presence. I think it's worth it to eat that money for a little bit, to just move on and just say, okay, never mind. Let's get these guys out of here. I think that was a strong move. Gurley, I as much as I loved Gurley when he was a Ram and he was performing really well, his attitude just really kind of bothered me a little bit, and I think it was bothering the front office as well. And I think that they were really ready to just get rid of him and move on. I know he's doing a decent job out in Atlanta, and I wish him the best, but I'm not too sad that he's not a Ram anymore. And for Brandon Cooks, I mean, I like Cooks, but his injury history always scared me, and I was like, I've always been worried that we're going to see him get hit, and then he's just not going to get up, and it's going to be a problem. So that was always an issue for me personally, and kind of just a worrisome thing. So for that, I don't know. I think that the eating that money right now, it was a strong move. Go ahead and move on from these guys. Let's kind of reset. Bring in Cam Akers, we'll bring in Van Jefferson to kind of replace those guys, and I think that worked out. So, and also coming to the realization that first-round picks are not mandatory to create a decent team. The most recent first-round pick for the Rams was quarterback Jared Goff, and he is actually the only Rams first-round pick since they returned to LA, and I think that that's strong because it kind of just eases that pressure of forcing them to be on the field. 2 worst decisions, the Washington trade. This at the time looked really strong, but Brockers is really the only player that worked out for the Rams in this regard. So obviously we made the move because the Rams had Sam Bradford and we were comfortable with that, but could have had Luke Kuechly, could have had Stephon Gilmore, could have had Matt Khalil. Instead we got, Alec Ogletree, Janoris Jenkins, Isaiah Peed, Rock Watkins, Stedman Bailey, Zach Stacy, Greg Robinson, all guys who were pretty strong, but overall not amazing. So the second also would be the great payday of 2018 is what I call it. And this is, we're eating money from that. And I know that it got the Rams to the Super Bowl, but that was a rough one. And that was, we could all kind of see it as they were making those deals. It was like, okay, this is going to come back on us pretty bad. So those are my answers for you, man. I appreciate the question. I definitely like the in-depthness of that. This one comes from Ruiz, LA Rams. This one is from the YouTube channel, so thank you for dropping that there. What is your favorite Rams memory since they came back to LA? Greg Zuerlein hitting that field goal in overtime in the NFC Championship game. I lost my mind. I shared the video on my YouTube channel. of me and my friends celebrating that one. Make sure you guys check that out. But that was absolutely magical, man. It was so much fun. That was seeing that kick go through, and then like it kind of hit me in waves of that the Rams are going to the Super Bowl. Oh man, that was absolutely incredible. I will always eat that up. So I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here. We're going to crack open a few beers, spin some vinyls, put some college football on mute today, and I hope you guys enjoy this game against the Washington football team. It should be a good one. I'll hop on Facebook Live before the game on the Rams Showcase Facebook page, so make sure you guys check me out there. But that is going to do it for me. I am Sheriff JOEBAGS. This has been Rams Showcase on Sports War Radio. For those of you who aren't Rams fans, our thoughts and prayers are with you. For those of you that are Rams fans, thank you guys so much for listening, and you guys have a great night.